in there's a negative number.
Yeah, I live in California, so right now we get the hot winds and the Santa Ana winds, and it's really bad for people who have sinus problems.
Oh.
So that's yeah, it's gonna be Santa Ana winds all week long. So
And is it I'm not familiar with those kinds of allergies because we don't have that here. Is that
see,
like from the winds that you get, they like bring in
yeah,
dust?
dust, wind, everything, pollen, you name it.
Oh wow.
So
So we get allergy season here in like usually it can start in May or April or May, maybe June, and then it goes usually into October. But you can cure it if you can get honey from honeybees, like honey beekeepers within about a mile of your house.
oh
And
wow.
and then if you take a spoonful every day for 3 to 6 months, you will like get rid of every single seasonal allergy. I got my son off of 6 allergy over the counter meds by using honey, and now he
Wow.
has no allergies.
Yeah, see here in California we always have Santa Ana winds. So all year round. And then we had the fires recently, so to add on to that, and then the we hardly ever get snow. So last week was the first time we got snow in Long Beach, and yeah, it was weird. So we had all kinds of weird weather. We weren't experiencing it like you guys were. So we're like, should we wear shorts? Should we wear tank tops? Should we wear flip flops? What should we wear? Should we wear a jacket? We're not used to all this crazy weather, so it's like,
You'll be fine. If it gets bad, you can always move to Wisconsin. We have plenty of room and not half of that crazy.
oh, there you go. Well, my name is Michelle Padilla. I'm the host of the Awareness Show, and I have Sarah, and she's going to tell me a little bit what you do. And I think Matt said you were a coppersmith. Am I correct? So, how
Yes.
did you get started in that?
Well, I write novels. I'm a fiction and nonfiction writer. And so that was my first accidental foray into metals, I guess.
Okay.
Only because I was researching and I realized that the characters I was writing about in the 1800s, all the women, I like to give voices to the women who you don't normally hear about, the kind of the average woman. And
Right.
I was like, wow, they lived like their entire lives stuck to the kitchen. And everything important happened in the kitchen. All the important conversations happened in the kitchen, and all their revelations happened in the kitchen. And so, what did they use in the kitchen? So I'm writing these pieces of each novel, and then I realized that the equipment that they were using 150 years ago would have been made by someone down the street. They could
Right.
have walked and got their teapot fixed by a coppersmith or a tinsmith or even a blacksmith. And I started to go, huh, like you can't get that anymore. You have to like buy it from China. And, we should be able to like know where our cookware is coming from the same way we ask where our food comes from.
Exactly.
Where did my cow eat grass, and is my chicken, free range, and what are they eating and how are they treated? And that same conversation kind of extends to our cookware, which is where the chemical change happens to our food. And I was like, well, in the old days, they knew who made their cookware. They knew what it was made out of. They knew everything about it. And now we don't. We should totally have that again. And I called my husband and I said, I want to start a cookware line. And he's so long suffering. He's like, okay. And so I just started making these. I wanted everything you would have found in a traditional American pioneer kitchen in my cookware line. And I wanted it all to be made by, local artisans, mom and pop American, everything sourced in America. And so then fast forward maybe half a year, I, of course, am still researching, well, how did they make it? I should see how they made the cookware that I'm making. And I happen to live about 15 minutes from a master tinsmith who he's retired. He used to work at Harley Davidson, and he does it for like as a side business now that he's retired. And he took me under his wing and taught me how cookware was built in the 1800s and how to do it. And then I was like, wait a minute, now I can make my own cookware. So I am a coppersmith that makes pots and pans and ladles. So I don't ask me to make you any jewelry. I know lots of coppersmiths who make rings. I cannot. I can make you a giant ham pan that is huge, but I can't make you a ring or a necklace. So that's, yeah, now I am the only woman coppersmith in America who builds cookware.
Nice. And how long did it start? Like, how long did it take you? How long? No.
I started doing this cookware line about 5 years ago, and it's been about that same amount of time that I've been researching and then getting my hands dirty. So I don't know. Yeah, 5 years or so. It's a
And
it literally is baptism by fire though.
can we find you in like Macy's? Where can we find you? Like, what department stores?
Online, mostly I sell from my shop because I build a little bit to order. So I can't, because it's just me and there's a lot of hand process and I can't just have somebody make it for me because it's one of those lost arts where if I even can have somebody make me a pot, like then they have to tin it. Well, there's like
Right.
5 tinners in America, me being one of them. So I make it all in my garage so I don't mass produce it. So it's all just on my House Copper, housecopper.com is where I sell it just because I can't wholesale. It's just me and my garage and my tools from 1810.
So you do this on your downtime without your kids being there, or how does that work? Because I know you got kids, so
I do. Yeah. Well, all they know is the shop. They've been part of it for so long that, when my daughter turned 5, her request on her birthday was to be able to solder. So I was like, okay. But they get used to it. I work when they're at school, or at night, close the garage doors and use the power tools and things like that. So it's like every week has like half shop time, half right time, and then the rest of the time is managing the house and the farm and the kids and you just got to compartmentalize your whole life.
right. That sounds interesting. And so you've been doing this for like 5 years, you said, right?
Yeah.
So what is the biggest challenges that you have made out of all of your pots and pans? What is the biggest challenge?
In terms of like a single piece I've ever done,
Yes.
it was the jambonniere, which is a giant French pan that is for mutton, like a whole leg of mutton, or you could do a whole leg of ham. And it's huge. It's another one of those, but it was one of those things where somebody said, here's a black and white photo from an old book that's all in French. I don't know French. And and can you make one? Because nobody else in the world is making these. So the only ones around are like vintage pieces that belong to, other people. They're just not for sale. You can't find them. No one's making them. And so when you get an order like that, like you have a photo and that's it. Like you don't have dimensions. You can kind of guess, and you have to just build it from nothing but a sheet of copper. And
Oh wow.
so it took months because it was so big, and you have to prototype and build one out of cheaper tin, and then you have to like rearrange it's a big, and it ended up I had to have Bob, the older tinsmith, help me because some of it was like you needed all 4 hands to do some of it because it was so big. But I was really happy with how it turned out. And so I just actually ironically heard from the guy who got it a couple years ago, and he just emailed me and he's like, oh, I still have the hand pan.
That sounds interesting. So like around Christmas time, that's your biggest holiday because all the people want pots and pans, right?
Yes.
And you have to.
Yeah.
So do you start like early because of Christmas or what?
Usually in July, I'll start building things. I do a lot of like tinsel, like Victorian area, what they would have had during the 1850s for their Christmas trees. And I make my kids help me. I'm like, here's two pliers and a bunch of, don't cut yourself too bad. Go.
And you'll get your allowance out of this way.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, you get $1 a box sold, kids. You'll be fine.
There you go. Okay, I'll work.
Yeah. Start the slave labor early.
So do your hands ever get tired of doing it? Do you get tired of doing it?
Oh yeah. And I get injured big time sometimes. So that gets hard. My hands are really, you can't see it on the video, but they're really scarred and banged up. And yeah, or if I have to do a lot of hammering, my entire right arm will just it'll swell almost double its size, and my hands will stop working for a couple of days where you just dropsy because it's muscle fatigue and everything like that. So yeah, there's a lot of physical fatigue. And when you're lifting, okay, side story, I tell all the stories.
Okay.
I have a sometime apprentice. She's a senior in college going for design, and she wants to just get some hands-on information, like knowledge about metal shop work. And so she comes a few times a month, and I said, okay, we're gonna tin some pots and pans. So you have to start the fire, put on all the safety gear, and then you're gonna like set a pot on the fire. And when it's hot enough, you're gonna melt tin inside, and you're gonna wipe the molten metal around and like lift it up over your head and wipe the rest out, and then you'll be good. And so we started, and she's like, the pot was like maybe 7.5 pounds. It's not a huge pot, but it's 7.5 pounds. And she's trying to lift it. And I was like, you gotta lift the pot, you gotta lift it, you gotta lift the pot over. And she's like, she can't lift it. And she's like taller than me by like 1.5 feet. And she's like, okay, well, I can do 2 hands. And I was like, no, you need a third hand to wipe the metal. Like you need, and she finally gave up and I had to finish it. But I forgot at that point, like I'm so used to lifting huge, unwieldy, heavy pots from, anywhere from a few pounds and ounces to like 15, 18 pounds over my head with one hand and have, metal pouring out on me while I do it. And so, it kind of reminded me, yeah, this is kind of dangerous. Yeah, we get hurt. We get tired. Other people probably can't lift pots over their heads.
I can't.
It's a good
we got heavy pots, and I know what you mean because I can only lift like 10, 15 pounds, and they're like huge and like so it's kind of heavy. And so my mom, she loves all kinds of pots and pans. I'm gonna have to tell her about how you make pots and pans so she can look at it because she loves different. She likes iron tail pots and pans, and so when I read about you, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good story because I have a lot of friends that like to cook. So once they hear about you, they're like, they're gonna check your line out and see your shop. And so my question is, so this is how you do it around the pandemic time. I know you're, keeping your safe distance. Do you get more business because you're doing the pandemic, or is it less? Or
surprisingly, my business has never been busier. And that surprised me. I was expecting things to slow way down. And instead it got so bad. I like broke myself trying to keep up. And I've had to really maintain, because I do a lot of restorations of vintage, pieces that are hundreds of years old and fix up old pots. So there's a lot of elements to it. And I was surprised, but then I realized, well, nobody's going out to eat anymore. Everybody's at home. People are cleaning up. Yeah. The hardest part for the pandemic, for me, was I almost had too much work. So that's not really a bad thing. But it was when I ran out of, my pieces, my raw materials, I couldn't get them in because mines were shut down, phosphorus mines, tin mines, silver mines. I'm so close to the actual, because I want to source so raw and I want to be able to tell you, this is the tin. It is made in Iowa by this guy. And I shook his hand. Like, I want to be able to do that. So I'm really close to the supply chain from the earth. And that was a little scary. And now even watching like the copper prices climb, I'm like, whoa, we might have a problem. Like I may be able to get it and it might take an extra couple of months, but it might be so expensive for each sheet that the smelters do for me down in Texas. Like I can't afford what they're smelting for me. So I mean, we're not there yet. It's got a ways to go, but that is something I've never had to think about. I always kind of assumed it would be there, but the pandemic has really like juggled international trade and commerce and raw materials to the point where it's like, I don't know what'll happen in 5 years,
Yeah, it's crazy because, like you said, a lot of people are now staying at home, cooking a lot. I've been doing dishwashing like every 2 nights. Filling it up, and I was like, hey, we never did this much dishwashing before. Because usually we go out or, and now it's like, okay, now we're gonna stay home, we're gonna cook because it's like the restaurants open, close, open, close. They just relifted California back not too long ago, so they're back at the restaurant. So who knows for how long? But yeah,
That's right, because you guys, you've been a lot more locked down than we have been here in Wisconsin.
Right.
I mean, or I don't know if it's the whole state or just LA or where, you know.
It's the whole state. So they open it up and then they close it back down. And then especially right around Christmas time, that's when they sit, okay, we're back, close it down. Now they're lifting it up. But then you got the Super Bowl parties going on next week. So we don't know what's gonna happen. So
Well, with Wisconsin, I'm sure the cities here, I don't spend a lot of time in Milwaukee or Madison, but here in the country, it is as if the pandemic never happened. That's
nice.
how life feels. Other than things are a little like you have to check if they're open, but like when I go to the feed mill to get like food for the bunnies and the chickens and all that stuff, they have never worn masks.
Wow.
The people that run that feed mill, they're like, if it's my time, it's my time. And they don't wear masks. I mean, you can if you want to, but they aren't. They
Oh
haven't
wow.
since it started. And they're like, hey, it's been a year. We never got sick. I'm like, because you're breathing in like corn all day. The virus probably goes in you and goes, there's too much corn in these lungs. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, here they made it mandatory. So it's like you have to wear your mask.
Oh, it was mandatory here for a little while too. That doesn't mean they didn't.
I mean, it's been so bad that they had the ICUs overflowing in California, and so I was supposed to have surgery last month. They pushed it back to this month because now the ICUs are kind of going down. So hopefully things could kind of get back to normal. But now we're doing the shots for COVID, but not enough supplies are coming out here to California, and so it's like
The world is a crazy place, isn't it, right now?
it is, it is scary. So, you know,
Well, so I find it, I mean, it's scary, I think, to live in it, but hopefully we all live
exactly.
long enough to be able
Right.
to see what so when I was I kind of use this as an example, even though it's different, but um uh in the late 1800s, see, this is my book research coming, the pioneers that went west, occasionally they would get sick, some of them, and they
Right.
called it black measles. Not
Right.
regular measles, black measles. And it only would affect random people, but it was like instant death. Like you got this in 5 to 7 days, you're dead. Kind of a horrible death too, and it's like awful. And nobody knew where it came from. The Indians didn't, like, the Native Americans back that lived there, they did not have this as part of their like world. Only the white settlers would get this. And it was random, and it would strike at random and come out of nowhere, but only in certain times of the year, whatever. And
Right.
anybody who was studying this, once they got going, would die of it too, because they figured it out. But anyway, now we call it Rocky Mountain spotted fever. It was a tick-borne illness, but it was before people knew that ticks could bite and like had diseases, right? They didn't know about
Right.
tick-borne illness. So it was this random arbitrary disease that would show up, disappear, infect some people, not others. Most people would die. They didn't know what was going on, and the Native Americans didn't have it. So they couldn't like give tips because they were like constantly using sweetgrass in like their homes and their clothes, and they wore it. And sweetgrass is like as effective as DEET to repel
Right.
ticks. So they didn't have Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and we did, and we were dying. And so, but I always think, like, imagine that's essentially what we're living with now. We don't know anything about this. It's like rewinding the clock and trying to be a doctor and trying to live with this pathogen that comes out of nowhere. I mean, we know more now than we did in the late 1800s, but it's the same idea of like
Yeah.
absolutely like no knowledge, like even, and the doctors back then, they were like getting ticks and they would test the ticks and then the ticks would bite them and they would die. Like you couldn't have enough doctors to study it. And it's like that again. And I like always love history, obviously, but I'm like, but I really didn't want to really like live this part. Like it's better to
Yeah.
read
I
about
think
it.
it's every 100 years it happens. So now we're going, okay, 1800s. Fast forward, then you have the plague back in 1900s. fast forward, COVID-19, you got all this stuff going on. So they say history repeats itself. So there you go. It's like it is changing so rapidly. And then you go back to history, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're back to this again. Okay, what's going to happen next? So we don't really know.
Well, what they got rid of, they got out of the problem with this one by what? Having another war? Let's hope we don't do that again.
Ooh, I hope not. Well,
Yeah.
Sarah, my time's almost up, and I know your time is almost up because I have another interview at 5. Sarah, so do you have a social media platform where they can reach you, and where can they buy your pots and pans?
Yeah, thank you for asking. They can find me online at House Copper on Instagram or House Copper and Cookware on Facebook, and then the same thing, housecopper.com. Just type in, American Cookware or House Copper or even my name, and you'll find me right away on all the platforms.
And I don't know if you know that, but we are selling T-shirts on Threadless. I'm going to send you my link. My wonderful graphic designer Maxine Rodriguez did our logos for us, so we're selling T-shirts for the awareness show. And you can find us on iTunes, iHeart, uh, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, all those platforms and YouTube. So check us out. And Matt, thank you for introducing me to Sarah. I want to check up with you again later, doing like a second interview, see how you're doing with your business, be like after the pandemic or like somewhere in between. You know what I mean?
I do. I'd love that, Michelle. That would be awesome. Thank you for
All
having
right.
me.
Thank you, Sarah. And I will send you the link after I'm done
Okay.
editing. All right. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.